Well, good morning, everybody. We're trying something new today. It's If you guys like this video, leave a like. It's going to be cooking with Wookiee, and I'm going to show you how to do gluten-free, dairy-free cooking at home. For those of all of you who have allergies and who are trying to figure out how to get around that, I'll show you the ingredients we use and how we do our cooking here at the house. So, without further ado, it's time to wash our hands, make sure everything's sanitary that way, and we'll start cooking. I usually wash my hands with dish soap because, if it sanitizes the dishes, it should sanitize your hands too. And in all of my years, it's never failed me. Also gets the grease, the grime, and all that other stuff off of there. So for some of you who do other things with your hands, like auto mechanicking, working on your lawnmower, motorcycles, stuff like that, and who have greasy paws afterwards, yeah, it helps to break down that grease too. It gets what goof off or goop and the rest of those cleaners don't get. So, alrighty. Now, oops, sorry about the lights. Moving right along. Gonna set you guys down over here, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Let me show off my kitchen. See if I can get it to switch cameras here. That's the hardest part is on some of these tablets is where's the controls. We deal with our fair share of disabilities and pain. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find a good spot to put the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. Because where I wanted to put it, it doesn't want to stay. So, and yes, I am a Jedi Master in this kitchen. Alright, now, in this edition, I will be making some pumpkin pancakes from scratch. They'll be dairy-free and gluten-free. Alright, so we start with a rather ginormous bowl because I can't cook anything in small amounts. It's just the way I was taught. That's why I'm so fluffy. Anyway, and our first ingredient, of course, is going to be the gluten-free flour. Now, Krusty's, from what I've found, Krusty's at King Soopers gives you the most flour for your buck. Alright? Because there's some gluten-free flours that are like $14 a pound. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not rich. Cannot afford this. And even if I were rich, that still would be a ridiculous price. Alright. And I gathered most of my ingredients together beforehand to make sure. You always have to make sure that you got what you need on hand.
Do you want this light off in here with me?
No, it doesn't need to be. Can be if you want.
No, I need to get the phone though.
So, I made a whole batch of these the other day. And here's what's left of my pumpkin. Now, usually, for a batch this size, it makes about 30 pancakes-ish. And, for all of you who are going, oh my god, that's a lot of pancakes. Look at it this way. So you make 30 pancakes. You can put some in the freezer because they will freeze. And then you can drag them out and either put them in your toaster, preferably without butter and syrup, because that will ruin your toaster. Or you can microwave them, or bring some out say you've got an early morning start the next morning and it's late, just throw some out into the refrigerator, and then you can nuke them. They only take about a minute. Be nice and hot, fresh for you in the morning. After the 1 minute, throw some syrup and butter on them after that, and you're good to go. All right? So, you know, don't worry about over making, because you can always freeze. And that sometimes is the best way to keep things convenient while still giving you that fresh homemade flavor. All right? So, I'm going to hopefully this camera's going to stay. I have a hardwood floor that moves as I move around it, so I'm going to see if I can convince the camera to stay up there. I know. Cutting board. There we go. So, bowl, flour. I usually eyeball everything, so I'm going to give you a rough guesstimate on the measurements, because I've kind of grown accustomed to doing everything by eyeball. And for those of you who have parents or, you know, puppies, in our case, where you use your measuring cups for scoops, or they use it to play in mud, you understand why I do it by eyeball. So you're going to want, with these bags, this is a larger bag, so you're going to want about a half a bag. Let's see. Need my eyeballs. I want to read it to you and let you know how much is in that bag. My guess is probably about 4 cups of flour. 4 or 5. And of course it doesn't say. It's 2 pounds of flour, so you're going to want about a half a bag. Maybe a little more. And you can use as much of this as you'd like. There's no hard, fast rules. I think for today's batch, I'm going to use about 3/4 of it. Like I said, I don't measure, I just eyeball. Alright, so you want to put your dry ingredients in first. So we've got flour. I use baking soda, about a tablespoon or so of it. So let me go be official about this and grab out my stuff. I don't know if you guys know this old joke. What's the difference between a cook and a chef and a cook? The answer is the cook does his own dishes. So I do my dishes. So you're going to want about a tablespoon or so of baking soda. I use it to help them raise up, and it does give it a little bit of a salty flavor. So for those of you who, because I don't cook with salt. Salt makes me swell up like a hot air balloon, so. And then you're going to want about 2 to 3 tablespoons, depending on how fluffy you want your pancakes. I'm going to, since I'm doing a little bit larger batch than normal, I'm going to go 3 on the tablespoons. Okay. And we are doing pumpkin pancakes. So I use This is the same stuff my mom used growing up, and I still use it. But that's the baking powder. You can use any baking powder, it all works the same. Okay, so we have our cloves. Yeah, you only want a pinch, or maybe two. So, something about like that. The reason I say that is because cloves, the spice clove is a very, very powerful spice. It will run over some of the rest of the flavors. I always take and smash up the chunkies because fresher spices, and especially clove, likes to chunk together. So we've got that, and that may or may not be enough. You have to check the flavor. There's just no getting around it. You can't just go by a recipe. I found that out the hard way. Alright. Because everybody flavors their stuff differently. Everybody has different tastes, different likes, dislikes. You know, some of you might hate pumpkin. Well, that's fine. Just throw some vanilla in and go for it. You don't have to go through all of this flavor. You also, if you're pouring spices out, want to pour it over your bowl. It's alright if you get a little extra. So, I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Because we're hand making pumpkin spice. If I had some pre-made, you know, that would be fine. I would probably just put 3 or 4 tablespoons of that in there and be done. But since we're making it from scratch, and let's see, we have ginger. Ginger's kind of a loud spice too. So you're going to want about a half a teaspoon or so, or half a tablespoon or so of that. Half a tablespoon. Sorry, I just got up not about an hour and a half ago, and it's what, almost 2 o'clock in the morning our time. So coffee. And then the best part of all is your nutmeg. And you're going to want about at least a tablespoon of nutmeg in it. Okay. And once again, nutmeg, you look closely and you see the chunkies. They look a lot like dirt clods from when we were kids, right? And you want to try and, I try to break those up before they go in the bowl as best I can. Because once you start mixing this up, it's going to be really, really hard to get those out. And then you get a pancake with a clump of clove or a clump of nutmeg, and whew, that's gonna hurt. All right, now sugar time. Time for the sweetest. The sweetness. Now, for those of you who are diabetic, okay, I'm using real sugar because that's what she likes, and to be honest, it's what I grew up as the flavor of. Walmart has something called Pure, Pyure. That's my go-to if I don't want sugar. If I don't want the diabetic spike from the sugar, that's my go-to for that. All right. So if you are diabetic with the rest of these allergies, you can use Teruvia. You can use Pure. Pure, I have found, is, as far as sweet goes, is the most powerful. So if you enjoy sweets like I do, that's your go-to. The Teruvia that I bought, which I will show you here. So we got this. I got this one the last time. Okay. I found it's not as powerful as the Pure. Why, I have no idea. Tried to flavor my coffee with it, and it just didn't work. But for this, we want to use... Oh, I got the wrong one out. Shame on me. If you use too much, you're going to over-sweeten it. My wife hates the really sweet stuff. So, for this, I'm going to use about a half of a cup of sugar in here. And that should do it. So, there's all your dry ingredients right there. Alright. Now, some of you have wire whisks at home, which is great. If you have professional quality wire whisks, I would probably mix it up with that. But I don't, so I'm going to use fork. And all you want to do is just mix this up really well. Make sure that your flours and your spices and everything are broken down. There's no clumps or lumps. Some recipes will call for a little bit of oil in here, which is fine if you want to. I've never used oil in my recipe, and this is my homemade recipe. This didn't come from a book, it just comes from my experience. So this is my personal homemade recipe for the pancakes that my wife just loves. And yes, I take them, I put them in the refrigerator for her after I make them. After you make them, you want them to cool off, so before you put them in there. And they last her quite a while. She has one every morning, so I don't have to worry about getting up and cooking right away. Her and I are on a little bit different schedules too, so let's see here if I can do this without getting it all over my kitchen. For some of you who have big enough bowls and are talented, you can do that. Not an easy task with powder. Okay. And that looks pretty good. Okay. So there you go. Now, here's the fun part. Time for your wet ingredients. Now, typically, you want to do your wet ingredients in another bowl, put them together, and then, tends to make a lot of dishes. So let me be right back. I'm going to go get another bowl. I'm doing this for the benefit of you the viewers. Okay, another big bowl. You don't have to do it this way. You can just put your wet ingredients right in here and mix them up. I'm doing it this other way as a tip of the hat to all the professional chefs out there. And if you do any actual cake baking and cookies and stuff like that, this is the actual way you're supposed to do it. So, first things first, I'm going to break out some eggs. And in our house, we eat a lot of eggs. So, Sorry, this video is taking a minute, but you know, it's not the easiest thing. Now, I like, because we put sugar in there, and I'm diabetic, and she doesn't eat a whole lot for meats. She eats mostly chicken. I put a lot more eggs into my mix than most. You know, most people would say 2, 3, maybe 4. I put a dozen. Yes, I know it's shocking. But I want the protein and all of that for the wife and I. Because the protein will counteract the sugar that's in it, for one. And two, if you are one of those people who don't get a lot of protein in your diet, this will help you out a lot. Oh, I missed. Now the other reason we do it this way is because the shells crack. So you will get these little chippies in your batter if you just throw it together the other way. I'm pretty good at spotting them and picking them out because I've been doing this for most of my life. But, you know, for those of you who are new to cooking or, you know, new to doing things homemade without the, like this quick, just add water kind of thing, that's how that works. So 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, number 12 right there. Yeah, I know it's a lot of eggs. Those of you who have high cholesterol will probably scream, but one of my favorite doctors is adamant about having enough eggs in your diet. And keep in mind, now, she's only eating 1 or 2 pancakes a day. So, with all of this, it really, by the time you're done with the month, so you've ate a dozen eggs in a month. It's not that bad. Some of us eat more quarter pounders than that. So, anyway, dozen eggs. Maybe about a tablespoon of vanilla or so. Okay. Now, typically, I would use an entire can, an entire small can, the little 8-ounce cans of pumpkin filling. Don't get the pumpkin pie mix, just get the raw pumpkin. Now, I say that for 2 reasons. One, the pumpkin pie mix is usually not dairy free. So you remember over the holidays, they sold these cans of pumpkin pie mix that you could just throw into one of the pre-made shells and bake off real quick, right? Those typically have a lot of sugar and they're filled with dairy. So just get the raw pumpkin. Alright, and that'll be here. This is and as sad as it is, my Walmart special wire whisk. Bought the big one yesterday while I was doing, or not yesterday, but the day before while I was doing another batch of pumpkin pancakes. So it's kind of dead. Now, for those of you who are looking at those wire whisks in horror, especially if you have to do your own dishes, the thing with the wire whisk is this. You use it, okay, say you use it to mix this up with, right? If you're not going to use it to mix up the entire batch with, which would probably be a good idea anyway, rinse it off real quick. Because if it's wet, it rinses off, no harm done. If it dries, then you've got a lot of work because you have to clean each and every wire. So make sure that you get that done as fast as you can. I'm using a spoon to start with because I want to break these eggs up a little bit before I put the milk in. Yes, babe. Hi.
Can you pause for a second?
Sure. I'll be right back.